Kia Jourafshin was fit to be tied last night. I've never seen him so angry. Kia, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Jim. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much indeed. Glenn is with me and Natalie's broadcasting from home. So what's so...
Morning, Kia.
Kia, what so incensed you about what Gary Neville said?
Well, I think what always incensed me is when somebody criticizes or talks absolute rubbish about professionalism and about, down-tooling or things like that, which someone, on someone like Gary Neville that really doesn't even know the word professionalism since he's left football. So for me, that was, if anyone has a conversation with me about one of my players, and I know every single one of them, but more so in the case of Carlos, professionalism was something that was, never, ever questioned. He's had his fair share of turmoil with clubs or with other people, and never, ever has anyone ever questioned or said anything about his professionalism.
So tell me what happened at United then, Kia. I mean, he had the opportunity to stay, right?
Yeah, well, when we signed the contract, the loan agreement with United, United wanted an option. David Gill, who the then chief executive, who I have to say was a great person, he insisted that United wanted an option, and if the boy had done well, they wanted to exercise the option. So they didn't want to be in a situation where they would renegotiate the entire deal. So they put an option into the deal on the loan that they could exercise any time during a period, and that period lasted. I don't remember the exact dates because it was quite a long time ago, but I think over a year and a half.
Right.
The option, and they could exercise that option at any time. And after the Champions League win in Moscow over Chelsea, they wanted to exercise that option. They called me to tell me that they're very happy with him, and he was extremely happy with that. But they didn't exercise the option. And we had several conversations. And of course, I think David was waiting for Sir Alex to give the last nod. And I think Sir Alex was after Berbatov at the time. And I don't know the ins and outs of exactly what happened, but perhaps, the Berbatov deal took more out of them and they wanted to wait a little while longer. And then in the January window, they again wanted to exercise it. That exercise didn't happen. They didn't exercise it. Of course, after that, all the fans were singing that famous song, Fergie, sign him up. And he was desperate to stay. There was an incident, I think you may or may not remember, where he scores. He comes on the pitch. He comes off the bench. He scores. He runs over to the bench, points his ears towards the boardroom, meaning that he wanted to.
I do remember it. Yeah, I do remember it. So he wanted to stay, and then presumably you.
And then when the option expired, was when and we went. There was a game in Rome against Barcelona, and after the game, obviously people were not in a great atmosphere because they just lost the game, and that was the moment that they said, okay, we really want to sign him up. And that was the moment that they really, really wanted to sign him up, but they'd lost the option. And of course, at that point, things had changed.
And had his mind changed by then? Did Carlos say to you, look, they had the chance, but now we should look elsewhere?
Well, Carlos was quite disappointed because, he at that point in time, he'd waited almost 2 years, a year and a half, a little bit longer. And, they had this option and they never, ever extended it. And he was quite disappointed at the fact that why have they not signed it?
Right.
And then they were really, really keen to sign him. But it was already, the game had already finished. And the season had finished and the option had expired. And, when they really, really wanted to sign him, there was
too late.
It was.
So Keir, you would say at no time, is this true, did Tevez down tools?
Well, I mean, that is the most ridiculous thing ever, because both seasons he had two fantastic seasons, and Carlos won the championship, the Premier League, in both seasons with Man United, and he scored. In his last season, he scored 15 goals, I think 7 assists. And he was one of their key players. He played 30 games out of the potentials. He had 3 games where he was injured in the entire season. I think he played a total of 50 games that season, with the FA Cup and the Carling Cup at the time.
Yeah,
he played a total of 50 games. How can you be down tooling if you're playing 50 games, scoring 15 goals with 7 assists?
So are you baffled by what Gary Neville is saying here then?
Well, you see, generally speaking, I wouldn't be baffled by what Gary Neville is saying, because he doesn't do any research. He's not a pro when it comes to commentary and speaking as a journalist. He often, I've heard him speak about managers, and I've heard him, badmouth managers. I've heard him speak, that this one should get the sack and that one should get the sack. And the problem with him is that he has to realize he's on TV and he's been given a great spot, and he's been very fortunate to be put on a very prime moment at Sky. Journalists, commentators, like every other walk of life and professionals, everybody has a criticism of football players being professional. The moment a football player steps out of line, the moment he's seen drinking, the moment he's seen in a bar, the moment he's seen doing something, that everyone is very quick to smack on top of them. What they have to also realize, and I have to say, most of the journalists, not just in the sportive world, but in other sectors, have become very, very professional, and the level has gone up. But Gary hasn't, because he doesn't do research. He doesn't understand who he's talking about. He doesn't do it. He just comes in and wants to wing it.
Well, listen, Natalie's going to come in 1 second. You're going to go head to head with Gary Neville tomorrow morning on Sky. You're not. I mean, are you looking for an apology?
Well, I think I'm not looking for an apology. I don't really, of course, I think he has to give not just me, but Carlos, more importantly, an apology for what he's done. But
okay, here's Natalie, Keir. Go on, hang on a second, Keir.
I just was going to pick up on, and I understand what you're saying about Gary Neville as a broadcaster now, but obviously he's talking, Keir, about his experiences at Manchester United. He was a player. He was in the dressing room. So in terms of doing his research, well, he has done his research because he was there, Keir. He's talking about the things that he saw from Carlos in that final season at Manchester United.
Well, unfortunately, that you make a good point, except that he didn't. He played 4 games that season. He was not a major part of the team. He didn't. I don't even think he even got a Premier League medal that year because he didn't play enough games. He was not a major part of the team. And if you speak, even at the time, I remember having a conversation with David Gill. And I remember having a conversation with, if you speak to any of Carlos's teammates, the one thing that they always say about him is that he was the absolute professional, because he you never ever saw Carlos going out, being injured. Carlos is the guy that would play with a knee twice the size, an ankle twice the size. He would play with any condition that he possibly could get onto the pitch, he would be there. If you go back to his career, when he won the championship at Corinthians, Carlos played the last 10 games with an injury that the doctors wrote to him and said, if you continue to play, it could end your career. But he wanted to play because he was captain of the team and he wanted to win the championship. And he refused to sit on the bench.
What's your memory of that then, Glenn?
Well, to be fair, like you say, obviously I've got the utmost respect for Carlos. He was one of the best strikers the Premier Leagues have seen. So there's certainly no doubt in my mind that he showed me. Obviously, I don't know Carlos personally or through his training days. Obviously, I only know him through playing against him and seeing him perform at a weekend. So But having watched that, he's not showed me any inch of a characteristic that would show me where he would sort of down tools or be unprofessional. We've all seen him play. He's very hard working. I think you'd struggle to see a game where he didn't put 100% effort in, to be honest.
I mean, you said to me a moment or two ago he was like Suarez, so we're scruffy players. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, like they're so hungry to get the job done. It's not always, perfect touches and pretty. He just works so hard that some strikers don't like tackling or don't like even getting dirty, whereas Carlos would roll his sleeves up and do whatever he needed to do for the team. And like I say, he's one of those strikers that never give the defenders a rest. Even if they're losing or things aren't going his way or he's not even performing that great, he'd still put the effort in.
Now, Kia, Natalie made a good point a moment or two ago that Gary Neville, of course, was at United at the time and would see for himself what he thought about the behaviour of Carlos, but you're not having that argument at all.
Well, Jim, I mean, we all know what Sir Alex was like. And I think if someone was down tooling or showing up late, there would be fines attached to that. Carlos was never fined at Man United. That never happened. There's no chance that, Sir Alex would let anybody down tool in any case. And if someone did down tool, they would pretty much get the hairdryer treatment, as we all remember. So I think the one thing that, you have to say is that, he was playing for a massive club. And those fans, and Man United fans are great fans, they was watching Carlos on the pitch week in, week out. And every time he came on, he gave such an incredible performance that, you had 75,000 people, 80,000 people singing, Fergie, sign him up, Fergie, sign him up. And people wouldn't do that if a player is not giving 100%, if they feel that the player is not, dedicated to the club. And Sir Alex would definitely have fined him, had put him under various treatments and regulations. That never, ever happened. So, it's not just what he says because he feels like it. The problem, I think, is that, again, when I respond to the fact of, Gary, and why I'm a little bit, taking this one much more seriously than before is because I think it is everybody's job to be professional when you are, especially when you are on TV, when you are trying to make an influence and you're given a spot,
Yeah, but Kia, having said that, that Gary Neville is very highly respected by fellow pros, Glenn's among them, and by viewers of Sky Sports.
Well, he may be very highly respected, but I can tell you, I know a lot of people that do not feel the same way. And I think, the one thing about it is that you see a lot of people on Sky Sports who are extremely, extremely well prepared, professional. They say things, they make their own opinions, and those opinions are respected. But Gary, unfortunately, he doesn't do his homework.
Well, here's Natalie again, Kia.
Yeah, I mean, Kia, I don't know Carlos Tevez at all. Obviously, you know him very well. But there are incidents in his career that we can fall back on and say that he did have some unprofessional moments. You can focus on his time at Manchester City, where he went missing after choosing not to come on as a substitute, if you remember, in a Champions League game against Bayern Munich. He didn't want to do that. He didn't contest the fine. He flew out back to Argentina without permission from the club. So there has been some unprofessional moments from him. And if you bring that back to what Gary Neville has said, he is only speaking about his experiences of Carlos Tevez.
Unfortunately, Natalie, what you're talking about is totally different to what Gary's talking about. You've now moved on.
Well, not really. It all comes down to being unprofessional. No, hang on, Kia, hold on. It all comes down to
2 years. You've now moved
but what I'm saying is you said that he has never been unprofessional, but there is history to show that he has been.
Well, and I will tell you something, Natalie, that Carlos actually was never fined for unprofessionalism in Manchester City, and he never refused to go on. And that debate went on, and Manchester City, in a document, which Carlos did pay a fine for, in a document, we all agreed that Carlos never refused not to go on. In fact, video evidence showed that he never refused not to go on.
He said at the time, Kia, he said at the time, I didn't feel right to play, so I didn't.
Yeah, And Zabaleta, who was sitting right next to him at the time, also said, there was massive confusion because they had warmed up, they'd been told to go on, then they'd been told to sit down, then they'd been told to go on. Then Mancini turned around and pointed, and in the video, Zabaleta says, me, and Mancini shakes his head yes, and then he turns to Carlos and points at Carlos, and that was the confusion. But, of course, Carlos, we went through that video evidence 300 times. Lawyers went through it, people went through it, the club went through it. At the time, the chief executive, John McBeath, he went through it. We had big conversations. The one thing was that even then, when Carlos was in Argentina, and then he was said, okay, now it's time to come back. He went to Argentina because Mancini didn't want him in the training ground. Because Mancini had decided that Tevez had come in through the owners of Abu Dhabi, and there was much more political issues inside that moment with Mancini that, unfortunately, I'm not, privy to say. But it was all about, him feeling that information was going out of the dressing room, which had nothing to do with Carlos, but that he didn't want players that had come through the old guard. He wanted his own new, fresh set of players.
Well, Kia, if we get back to the time at United, Gary, and I think this is what has got you going, he said people were in Tevez's ear all the time. We have to assume that was you.
Well, it could have been me or anybody, but yes, I'm presuming he's trying to say it was me.
Yeah, and that's what's angered you, isn't it?
Not at all.
Presumably.
Actually, I'm okay with Gary throwing whatever he likes at me. It's the nature of the business that I'm in, but I'm not okay with Gary throwing something at Carlos in that nature, because Carlos is, you cannot not be a professional, and I think Glenn will tell you, and I think everyone will tell you, and I think even Natalie will understand, and she understands sports. You cannot be unprofessional and win over 40 major titles in your career. He's won the Premier League 3 times. He's won the FA Cup, the Carling Cup. He's won the Copa Libertadores. He's won in Juventus. He's won two times. He was champion of Serie A. He was champion in Brazil, champion in Argentina, champion of the Champions League, champion, World Cup champion, champion of 3 times nominated, and won Player of the Year in South America. Now, I don't compare anybody to anybody, but Pelé and Maradona only won it twice. He won it 3 times. How can you be unprofessional, questioning your professionalism with that kind of a record? There is no chance. It's not even a point about that.
Okay, well, I know you're going to go head-to-head with Gary tomorrow morning, and that will be on Sky Sports. Quite a lot of Liverpool fans on the Twitter feed asking me to ask you about Philippe Coutinho. Would he have a desire to return to Liverpool, Kia?
I think Philippe, at the moment, he's at Bayern. He's had an injury. He had an operation 2 weeks ago on his ankle, and he is 6 weeks from recovery for that. Unfortunately, he's probably missed a chunk of the Bundesliga now, because the Bundesliga will start on Saturday, so he'll miss a chunk of that. And probably, hopefully, be fit for the tail end of the balance. He was holding back the operation for the season to finish. Unfortunately, with the pandemic and the corona, the Bayern doctors decided that it was a good time to do it, because, he couldn't really go on much longer because his ankle was swelling at the time. So
he's sidelined at the moment.
So he's sidelined at the moment.
And any truth in Coutinho to Chelsea?
Look, that's, at the moment, I said it, I think the last time I was on, we have not spoken to anybody about any deals whatsoever. I think at the moment, everyone's concentration is in regarding to this pandemic and how football can restart in a safe and secure environment, and, the health and safety of everybody. I think the transfer side of things and where he would go or where people will go will come into play down the line when things have got back to some sort of normality.
Of course. And let's finish with Willian, though. He's a free agent. There's been talk about him being on the move. I read the other day Arsenal being mentioned, but as a free agent, might that happen?
Well, again, we're not sure at the moment how football is going to finish in terms of the season. We do know that there is a vote to try to get training back on the 18th of May, and then from there on, see if we can get some games in mid-June. Not sure how FIFA and the Premier League will make decisions in terms of free agents and what happens at the end of June in terms of when their contracts expire, what will be the extensions. There will have to be a lot of conversations. It's not just Willian, but I think all free agent players are in an awkward situation because do you sign in contract? Do you extend for a month? Do you extend for a longer period? How things will go? So I think, that will be something that will just play itself out closer to the time.
Okay, but listen, in the meantime, Kia, I won't be at Sky tomorrow. I'll be in here at Talk Sport. You looking forward to chatting with Gary?
Well, the thing is that I don't generally like to talk to the media and have a debate because I always feel like things have to be positive, and I always, especially in this moment of pandemics and Corona, I like things to be positive and on a good note, not to have a fact-finding situation between them. The most important things are, if you take someone like Tevez and Coutinho and Willian and David Luiz and all these guys, the amount of charity work at the moment that they're doing, Carlos's foundation in Argentina, Carlos, the one thing people forget about Carlos, which is something, a lot of players in all sports, be it NBA, NFL, etc., look to sports in order to get out of the environment and the situation that they're in and improve their lives. And Carlos has been one of those guys who's used sports to improve and help the ones in the favelas and the guys that were left back. And he has not been the guy who's looked to make his money and move into a different sector of life. No, he's kept a house very close to the favelas in Argentina. And he is, you saw in Man City when he was, every time he scored, he pulled out his shirts and he was pointing to one favela in Argentina. He's doing an incredible amount of charity work at the moment in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. There was a movie about him, The Apache. And I think, if you watch that about him, you'll understand where he came from. Okay,
Kia, we're out of time, but I want to thank you for coming on. And we'll watch tomorrow, obviously, 9 o'clock.